The moment Warden Lisa Caldwell collapsed in the prison infirmary, everything changed. At first, the nurses thought it was just fatigue. Another long day and a long career. But within hours, her body was burning with fever, her skin clammy, her breathing shallow, and within 3 days, her test results came back HIV positive. She was 52 years old, respected, feared, a woman who had spent nearly 2 decades running River Creek Prison with precision and zero tolerance. She followed every rule, until the day Marcus Dean walked in. Marcus was 38, recently transferred, soft-spoken, always respectful, with a spotless record that made other inmates nervous. And yet, Lisa, the no-nonsense warden who never let anyone close, started breaking her own rules. For him, what started as quiet conversations turned into late-night letters, secret meetings, smuggled notes, and then silence. Because by the time her test results arrived, it was too late. Someone had already whispered the truth. It wasn't an accident. This was personal. She trusted him. But Marcus Dean may have used that trust as a weapon. Was it love? Was it manipulation? Or was it something far more cruel? Before we uncover the shocking truth behind this prison romance gone fatally wrong, comment where you're watching from. And if you're new here, click the subscribe button so you never miss any of our upcoming videos. River Creek wasn't just a prison, it was a fortress. Tucked away behind high concrete walls and steel gates, it held over 200 inmates. And for the last 16 years, it was run by one woman, Warden Lisa Caldwell. She was disciplined, calculated, always 5 steps ahead. At 52 years old, she had never married, had no children, and was respected by everyone from correctional officers to the state board. She didn't need anyone. That's what everyone believed. That's what she wanted them to believe. Then came Marcus Dean. He was 38. Calm, articulate, recently transferred after a model record at his last facility. Not a single write-up. Not one disciplinary infraction. To some, he was the kind of inmate you barely noticed, kept to himself, didn't start trouble. But to others, something about him felt too polished, too perfect, like he was waiting for something or someone. That's when the questions began. Why would a woman like Lisa, known for being untouchable, risk everything? Was it loneliness? Or something deeper? Did Marcus target her from day one? And if so, was the murder just a tragic accident born from betrayal, or a cold, calculated part of his plan? Later, the investigators would find notes, hidden beneath her office drawer, tucked behind books, and folded inside her jacket pockets. Pages written in tight cursive. Notes that didn't sound like her at all. Then came the surveillance footage. Or rather, the lack of it. A single 40-minute window where the cameras had glitched. No one noticed it for weeks. And somewhere in the middle of it all, Warden Caldwell, staring at herself in the mirror one late evening, her eyes sunken, her hands shaking, not from fear, from knowing, from realizing that the lines she once guarded so tightly had vanished. To understand how Warden Lisa Caldwell ended up where she did, collapsed on that cold infirmary floor, betrayed and infected, you have to go back decades to the quiet, tightly wound childhood that shaped her. Lisa grew up in a military household. Her father was an army sergeant, strict, disciplined, never late. Her mother taught school and ran the home like a boot camp. Emotions weren't rewarded. Excellence was expected. From an early age, Lisa learned how to keep things bottled up, how to stay composed, how to survive with structure. That carried her into adulthood. After graduating top of her class in criminal justice, she made a name for herself turning around some of the toughest, most mismanaged prisons in the state. River Creek was her latest and most high-profile assignment, a facility plagued by corruption, violence, and low morale. She didn't just clean it up, she rebuilt it. But beneath the surface of her career success was silence. Lisa never married, never had children. Her closest brush with that life ended 15 years ago, when her fiancé, Michael, was killed in a car crash just 3 months before their wedding. After that, she buried herself in work, promotions, transfers, accolades, anything that made her feel like she still had control. And then came Marcus Dean. Marcus had lived a very different life. He grew up bouncing between group homes, no father, no stability, and a mother who disappeared before he turned 9. By the time he was 17, he was already in and out of juvenile facilities. At 27, he was arrested during an armed robbery and sentenced to 20 years without parole. But something shifted in prison. He kept to himself, studied psychology, tutored other inmates, helped over a dozen men get their GEDs. He stayed out of fights, never raised his voice. Officers wrote glowing reports. He was the kind of inmate that made people question the system, as if maybe he'd just been in the wrong place at the wrong time. When Marcus arrived at River Creek, he requested a reassignment, away from food service. He wanted to work in the prison library. Lisa approved it herself. She remembered thinking his tone was respectful, his eye contact strong. He didn't seem like the rest. There was something about the way he spoke, calm, deliberate, that disarmed people. And from there, the story began. At first it was subtle, small talk during her rounds, thank you notes, a quiet nod of respect. But then came the conversations, about books, about life, about loss. And Lisa, who had spent most of her adult life locked in her own emotional cell, started unlocking the door for him. But not everyone was blind. One evening, after lockdown, a younger inmate, one who had grown up in the same housing system as Marcus, slipped a note under her office door. It read, "He's not what he seems. Ask him about Fremont." She ignored it, dismissed it as jealousy. In her mind, Marcus had done nothing wrong. But later that week, after she approved a library budget request Marcus had personally drafted, she passed him in the hallway. She nodded. He smiled. And as she walked away, he watched her, longer than he should have. Eyes still, no expression, and something about it felt wrong. But by then, it was already too late. It started with her staying a little longer after rounds. The library had always been quiet, almost forgotten in the daily chaos of River Creek. But now, Warden Lisa Caldwell found herself drifting there more often. At first, she told herself it was just routine, just checking in. But the way Marcus Dean spoke, the way he listened, it chipped away at her defenses. Their conversations became deeper, more personal. He asked about her childhood. She asked about his regrets. They spoke about loss. Lisa told him about Michael. Marcus told her about never knowing what family really felt like. No judgment, no pity, just two people who had survived long enough to learn how to hide pain. And in that library, between rows of forgotten books and dusty shelves, something dangerous began to grow. The first time it crossed the line was during a scheduled lockdown drill. The halls were empty, lights low, staff distracted. Lisa stood in the office near the library, waiting. Marcus entered quietly. No words, just a look. And then, her hands reached for his face like she had done it 100 times before, as if this wasn't a prison, but a memory they were both desperate to keep alive. After that, it became routine. They found ways. Lisa learned how to temporarily disable specific security feeds without raising alarms, claiming maintenance issues. Marcus got hold of a smuggled burner phone, and under a fake name, he and Lisa would text late into the night. She saved his number under Laura, Doc Compliance. The messages were simple at first. "You look tired today. Get some rest. I miss your voice. I feel alive again." But with every message, every secret meeting, the risk grew, and others began to notice. Officer Hernandez, a seasoned CO who had worked under Lisa for 7 years, started questioning why certain patrol logs weren't matching, why Lisa's route changed unpredictably, why Marcus, who once kept to himself, now seemed agitated anytime she wasn't nearby. Lisa dismissed it all. "This is real," she whispered to herself one night, staring at her reflection in the dark glass of her office window. "This is the first real thing I've felt in years." But Marcus changed too. The tenderness started turning sharp. He wanted more time. He demanded more access. He questioned who she was texting, accused her of pulling away if she didn't reply fast enough. Still, she kept the affair going. She believed in him. Or maybe, she believed in the version of herself he made her feel like. Until one night, during a routine inspection of the East Wing, Lisa collapsed. Mid-sentence, mid-step. No warning. At first, she thought it was stress, no sleep, too much caffeine. But as the dizziness took over and her knees buckled under her, something inside her whispered, "This isn't nerves. This was something else." The morning she collapsed, Lisa had been leading a staff briefing, clipboard in hand, focused as always, reviewing incident reports from the night before. Mid-sentence, her eyes fluttered. She reached for the table to steady herself, and then dropped to the floor. Panic. Officers shouting her name. CPR called over the radio. Within minutes, she was rushed to the local hospital. No signs of trauma, but her vitals were unstable. Her fever spiked. Her immune system was failing. Then came the results. HIV positive. It didn't make sense. Lisa Caldwell hadn't been sexually active in over a decade, at least according to the friends who knew her best. The staff was stunned. Word spread like wildfire through River Creek. Officers whispered in the break room. Inmates traded theories in the yard, and within 24 hours, an internal investigation was launched. At first, it focused on procedural failure. How could the warden, the one person responsible for everyone else's behavior, be at the center of a scandal no one saw coming? But then, the evidence started piling up. IT forensics reviewed her work emails. They found metadata linking messages to a burner device, one that had been activating from her home Wi-Fi on multiple nights. Texts sent between 1 and 3 a.m. to a number flagged in a recent inmate contraband sweep. Then came the physical evidence. During a random shakedown of Marcus Dean's cell, officers uncovered a hidden stash behind a loose vent cover, 2 used condoms, concealed in a plastic bag. DNA analysis confirmed what many already suspected. Both samples came back as a match to Lisa and Marcus. The implication was devastating, but it didn't stop there. Her car's dash cam had been turned off for weeks, something she had never done before. Security protocols she once enforced without exception had slowly been rewritten to accommodate blind spots, especially near the library wing and admin corridor. Lisa denied everything. In her initial interview, she stared straight ahead. Calm. Cold. No emotion. She called it a setup. Said Marcus was manipulating the system to take her down. But as they showed her the call logs, the hidden texts, the altered surveillance records, her silence spoke louder than any confession. And then, one of the surveillance servers that had been marked as corrupted turned out to have an unbacked fragment still recoverable. It showed them. Lisa and Marcus. Alone. Close. Her hand brushing his voice low and intimate. A kiss exchanged near the book cart. No mistaking it. Then came the recorded calls. A routine review of inmate phone calls uncovered a chain of recordings where Marcus used code names, but Lisa's voice was unmistakable. Whispering, laughing, planning times they'd meet. But the most damning piece came from an unlikely source. An older inmate named Jermaine, who had kept to himself for years, came forward. Quiet, measured. He said he'd watched Marcus for months, said he overheard conversations that weren't meant for anyone else to hear. According to Jermaine, Marcus had a plan all along. Lisa wasn't the first person he'd targeted, just the first one who believed him completely. For weeks, the investigation dug through every corner of Lisa Caldwell's life, and every inch of Marcus Dean's past. What they discovered was more calculated than anyone expected. A letter, handwritten, folded tightly and hidden inside a hollowed-out law book in the prison library. It was addressed to no one, but it was written by Marcus. The ink was neat, the tone almost proud. He admitted everything. He knew he was HIV positive long before he ever stepped foot in River Creek. His diagnosis came 2 years prior, quietly recorded at his last facility's infirmary. He never told anyone, never showed symptoms, but he knew, and he used it. He also admitted the transfer was no coincidence. Marcus had studied Lisa from afar, knew about her history, her reputation, even the personal tragedy she carried, Michael's death. He used it. Every glance, every word, every pause in conversation. But it was the reason behind it all that landed like a gut punch. 5 years earlier, Lisa Caldwell had denied a parole recommendation for an inmate named Darren Briggs. The records show her signature across the final denial. Darren was Marcus's cousin, the closest thing he ever had to a brother. 3 weeks after the parole was denied, Darren was found dead in solitary confinement. Suicide by hanging. No note, no explanation, just silence. Marcus never forgot. In the letter he wrote, "She took someone I loved, so I made her love me, and gave her something she'd never forget." It wasn't about seduction. It was about control. Pain for pain. By the time Lisa read those words, the damage had already been done. She had resigned from her position, her reputation shattered, her health irreversibly changed. When the case reached court, the truth was laid bare in front of the world. Lisa sat quietly, her hands trembling, tears silently streaming down her face as the letter was read aloud. Marcus. He showed no emotion, no regret. When the judge handed down his new sentence, life without parole, no possibility of early release, Marcus simply smirked. For him, the sentence meant nothing. He had already served his version of justice. 1 year after the courtroom fell silent, Lisa Caldwell quietly stepped away from public service. No press conference, no cameras, just a short statement delivered to the Department of Corrections. She cited health concerns and a desire to focus on healing. But there was more. She began speaking at closed-door panels, advocating for stricter boundaries between inmates and staff, calling for mental health support, accountability, and policy reform. Not to clear her name, but to prevent anyone else from making the same mistake. She never mentioned Marcus Dean by name again, but just when it seemed like the chapter had closed, something else surfaced, something no one saw coming. 6 months after Marcus's sentencing, a routine staff health check at River Creek revealed a pregnancy. The mother? A 29-year-old prison nurse named Alyssa Grant. She was quiet, kind, kept to herself. No one suspected anything, until DNA testing confirmed the impossible. The father was Marcus Dean. Despite the cameras, despite the investigations, despite the consequences, it had happened again. Somehow, some way, Marcus had found another way in, which left everyone asking, was Lisa ever truly special to him? Or was she simply the first? Because if he could seduce a warden and manipulate the system right under her command, what chance did anyone else have? In one final report submitted to the state board, a psychologist who had reviewed Marcus's case wrote, "He doesn't just lie, he adapts. He mirrors pain and turns it into power." Lisa never publicly responded to the pregnancy news. Her friends say she moved out of state, started over, quietly, privately, still battling her diagnosis, still carrying the weight of what was done to her and what she let happen. Marcus remains at Redstone Maximum Security Facility, locked away for life. But his story lingers. He played the system, and everyone inside it. But in the end, the system played him right back. And as we close this haunting story, one question still echoes in every hallway, every office, every cell where silence can no longer hide the truth. How many people need to be hurt before we learn to see the danger behind the smile? Now that you've heard the full story, we want to hear from you. Would you have seen through Marcus Dean's charm? Was Warden Lisa Caldwell a victim, a criminal, or something in between? Do you believe inmate-staff relationships, especially ones like this, should carry criminal charges? Let us know your thoughts in the comments below. We read every single one, and your perspective might just change how others see this case too. And if this story shook you, wait until you hear what we have coming next. Next week, we'll uncover the twisted true story of a pastor who ran a drug ring, not from a church pulpit, but from death row. Subscribe now if you love real stories with real consequences. And don't forget to turn on notifications so you never miss a moment. We'll see you next time.